This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am very honored to be with Jerod Dailey, journeyman machinist and precision machining instructor at South Adams High School in Bern, Indiana. Welcome to the podcast, Jerod.
Hey, thanks for having me, Noah.
This is a real pleasure having you. Today we're going to be talking about education of machining in high schools and beyond. And Jerod, just tell me briefly where you're an instructor and give me a little background on that.
Okay, I'm the instructor at South Adams High School in Bern, Indiana, like you said. We're about an hour south of Fort Wayne, about 2 hours northeast of Indianapolis, to give everybody kind of an idea, since Bern's a little small town, very small population, nothing like from where you're from. We get students.
What's the population?
I couldn't even tell you. We have 3 stoplights. So pretty small town.
Okay.
Our school.
How many people are in the high school?
We graduate about 100 per year. So about 100 per class. Our surrounding schools are about the same size. But yeah, we get students from 7 different high schools.
Yeah. 7.
And yeah, 7 different high schools send to us. So the different schools specialize in different classes. South Adams just happens to have one of their vocational classes or CTE classes as precision machining.
I see. So there's these 7 high schools like in your district, and the kids mainly they go to that specific high school where they're at for their area, but then there's a few different specialties in various other high schools, and they'll travel from one to the next for that.
Correct. They'll take all their core classes, their English, their math, science, all those other classes at their home high school. Even the South Adams students will take that at the big building. We're in a separate building. And then they'll come to me if they want to specialize in precision machining, engineering, classes like that or careers like that. So
now I want to get your story, which is sort of a lot of the story of how this program that you lead came to be. And so take it back now. You've been there for how many years? 24 years?
This is my 24th year.
Okay. So give us the, a nice summary of how all that happened. How did you get from where you were back then to where you are now?
Okay. Well, I was on track to be an architect until I found out that was 6 years of college. And I knew college wasn't for me. I could have gotten the grades, I was a good test taker, decent grades and everything, but I just didn't want to go down that path. So my dad was a mechanic for 30 some
and you
years.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
You were a student at Adams, correct?
I was a student at Adams Central, which is just north, one of the rivals of South Adams. So when it comes to football and other sports, Adams Central and South Adams are big rivals. But so I took the bus from Adams Central down to South Adams. My junior year, I took an automotive class at South Adams and didn't really get. I learned one thing from that class that was most important, and that was I liked working on my own stuff. I didn't want to work on other people's cars. So my guidance counselor, towards the end of my sophomore year, pulled me in his office, and I was pretty sure I wasn't in trouble. And he said, "Hey, they're starting up this new class at South Adams, and we think you'd be good for it. We looked at your transcript and seen you've taken every shop class we have at South Adams, or at Adams Central, that we think you'd be good to go to South Adams for this new machine trades class." And I was like, "Okay." So I signed up for it. And the rest is history, as they say. But during that class, we toured a shop, Micro Precision, was owned by Textron at the time. And during the field trip, the older guys in the shop were talking about an apprenticeship. The first time I'd ever heard about an apprenticeship. And the more they talked about it, the more I realized, hey, that's what I want to do. Wow, they're going to pay for my schooling. They're going to train me, and I get paid during the day. Wow, what more can you ask for? And so
Yeah.
fast forward about just under 2 years out of school, I applied, got a job there, and less than 2 months later, I was accepted in their apprenticeship, and from there.
And you knew at the time that college was just that was not your thing.
I look at it this way: college isn't for everybody. College is great for some people. It just wasn't my path. I want my doctor, my lawyer, people like that to go to college. In the skilled
Yeah.
trades, an apprenticeship is our path to success. And for college, we didn't have a whole lot of money. I know now we could have gotten scholarships and stuff like that. I tell students now, if you are going after a career that you need college, you can pretty well find somebody to pay for it at this point. But in the skilled trades, with our
Yeah.
apprenticeships, the shops that we work for pay for our schooling.
Very interesting. So here's something that to me, it gets a little ambiguous sometimes. The kids that go through your school, if they do go work at a production shop, the plan is for them to become apprentices after that, or do they come in with skills in order to get right to work, or it's sort of in between?
I feel my job is to get my guys and gals ready straight for industry. That when they leave class, they can walk in and be productive machinists from day one. My goal is to train them to be true machinists that can walk in, use a print, use the tools, program the machines, set up the machines, create a good part. Um, Basically, give me a print, get out of my way, let me do what I do. And we do real life type
Wow.
projects in class. And so I'm constantly trying to put myself out of a job. My job is to put myself out of a job so they can do everything themselves.
Okay, so theoretically, if they excelled in your class, they might not need an apprenticeship.
Well, we can all be better. So when they
Of
get out
course.
into the real world, they're going to be on different machines, bigger machines possibly, tighter tolerances, different processes. We are just a school. We have several different CNCs, manual machines, EDMs, surface grinders, TIG welding, have our own inspection equipment. We do our own heat treat, all that kind of stuff. But
Wow,
um,
heat
it,
treat.
yeah, in the whole scheme of things, we give them an introduction, but when they go out to industry, they're going to be competing with people that may have never had a class like that. So the technical stuff we get into, that really helps give them a step up. And that's why I took the position
Yeah.
when I did 24 years ago, because I knew how much it gave me a head start. So yeah, I am a
Okay.
strong believer in apprenticeships, and my guys will still need an apprenticeship um, to be the best of the best. I steal that from
Right.
4-H, making the best better.
Also, to me, it
So,
seems like maybe if they've gone through some preparation before they start the apprenticeship program, maybe certain kids that might have dropped out because they had a hard time beginning with the stuff, they come in already confident. Maybe some of the holes have been filled in, and so they can get off and running. Do you think that's something that happens too?
exactly, yeah, because who has a lather mill sitting in their garage at home? So most of the students I get when they come in, they've never seen a lathe or mill before in their life. So we still start out with manual equipment, um, give them a taste of that. Still use a file. We still go through the basics, but then we get into fourth and fifth axis machining. CNC lathes, almost anything you can think of or you can imagine in a high school shop. And yeah, the confidence level, um, that is a big part of it. And since they've never seen it before, and
Yeah.
since so many schools don't have quote unquote shop class anymore, they don't even know what metalworking is until they come in. So yeah, I like that you said the confidence, because that is.
Yeah. Well, I could just see like, all right, somebody, first of all, it probably makes some people know if they're interested or not in it. It also, I could see sometimes you start something new and um, it's a challenge, and some people just kind of go, never mind. But if they've already got a background, they've already got a confidence, maybe they know that it's something they're interested in already. Maybe they're less likely to just wash out right away.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Most of the students that sign up, they've heard about it through the grapevine, seen their friends or their students, other students in their school, bring back projects and stuff that we've done, and or seen us on Instagram or the different projects in different aspects. And so they kind of see that, and hey, I think I want to do that. And one thing we really stress, and I'm sure most of your listeners know, that math is a strong part of machining. So um, we have some math teachers that help us recruit the right students to get in there too.
Interesting. Okay, let's take it back because the evolution of this course that you instruct, I think it seems to correlate a lot with your own path. So, okay, so we'll take it back. You said you took the class when you were a junior or senior. Um, you went to you you went to work, became an apprentice afterward. Then what happened?
Okay, so my senior year, I started the class. We were the first class at South Adams, so it was with a new teacher. He'd taught classes like this before, but at South Adams, he was a new teacher, new advisory board, new to South Adams. There was 12 of us in that first class just in the afternoon. Um, I'd started machining at Adams Central, but they only had, little South Bend lathes that barely worked, a Bridgeport style mill that kind of worked, and a surface
Mm-hmm.
grinder that nobody knew how to use. So once I get into that class, I was able to be a teacher's aide, back at Adams Central, and help get some of those machines going again. And then one of the local printing companies needed a maintenance person, that could do machining. So they contacted the school, and I actually had to wait until after Thanksgiving weekend to start
So
because I had to be
you
18.
were still a student at the school, but you were also being a special helper in the class. And then you got while in school, you got contacted by somebody who needed someone. Is that correct?
The company contacted the teacher, of the machine trades. Steve Tumbleson is his name. And they said, yeah, we've got, a couple that may be interested. So he talked to me about it. And so I waited till that Monday when I turned, after I turned 18, so I could actually start. And so I started working in the maintenance department. Basically, I walked in, great people there, but, it's a printing company. So newspapers have to get out. Yeah, that was back
Mm-hmm.
when there's newspapers. And so it was, hey, we need 12 of these nylon rulers. There's a lathe, tools are over there. I got to go fix a machine. It's like, okay. I'd never
That's a
used
great
carbide
new,
tooling
but it's a
before,
great
never machined
experience.
nylon. Oh yeah, yeah. Never machined nylon before, and the lathe was a lot more complicated than what we had in class. But hey, it was either learn how to do it or leave. And so I figured it out, and they kept me. So I stayed there until right after graduation, and and then uh, went to another shop that was starting a new machine shop, and so it was a parent of somebody I graduated with that was starting a machine shop and wanted me
Interesting.
um, to try to get their machine shop going, and so I
So
went
they
and
knew
did.
you were already an ace. That's why they
Uh,
said, "Oh well, he
I
can
don't know
figure
about an
out
ace,
things.
but
Bring him
yeah,
in."
yeah. I grew up in a family where we didn't hire plumbers, we didn't hire
Oh,
electricians, we did everything ourselves, and
like
so
total opposite of me.
hey, it takes all kinds. So you probably like being behind the desk a lot more than I do.
Uh,
So
I mean, who likes being behind a desk,
yeah.
really?
Well, uh,
But
there's got to be
I
some
think
people
humans
because
aren't.
they keep our businesses going, and I'd rather be running machines.
I mean, I think I like somewhere in between. I'm definitely the guy that needs to hire the electrician, but I also feel like I'm an animal and I need to move around. So you were helping starting this machine shop. You're
Yep.
what, 20, 21?
I would have been 18 when I first started there. Um, but the
Wow.
teacher I had at Machine Trades, he did a great job of teaching us the basics, teaching us concepts. And that's what I still try to stick with is not this is how you do this, is this is how you would do this or something similar to it. If
That
we
makes
always
total
teach
sense.
if we always teach concepts, then it doesn't matter what the parts are. So we can make whatever part then. I learned how to use the machiner's handbook. I wasn't afraid to ask people questions. So I started to get a pretty good network of machinists that I knew that I could ask them questions. And right across the road, there was a machine shop, so a bigger machine shop, so we could go pick their brains at times too.
Wow.
Definitely a God thing that
It's
helps us get through those things. So,
yeah, well, it sounds like you have so many things that so many qualities that really would help somebody, excel in anything. You've got the contacts, you know how to think, you understand the whole idea of not just learning how to do this one thing. I want to learn more about your story, but I want to pause on that. Do you feel like in a lot of trade schools and I'm not, I mean, I should know more about it, but it's still very vague. Um, when you hear about trade schools and apprenticeships, et cetera, I think apprenticeships are probably, maybe it's different. Do you think a lot of it is just very, like, for lack of a better word, mechanical of, this is how you run this, and this is the step by step of how you do this program and run this machine, and people kind of get a little bit one dimensional, as opposed to this is how you learn how to think and look at it all holistically. I mean, I think that's a big issue in regular, traditional education as well. But I'm wondering if in the trades, if that's something that happens where it's just like, this is how you operate this machine, and then people sort of almost become robotic.
when I talk about an apprenticeship, I'm talking about a registered apprenticeship through the United States Department of Labor. The
Mm-hmm.
just the word apprenticeship is overused. Yes, shops train, but a registered apprenticeship, it's documented training, it's structured training, it is so much time at each machine. So not just hey, this is how you do it, but now you've got to prove it. So it may be just throw out some numbers, maybe 3 months, 6 months, whatever of CNC lathe. So after that amount of time, you should be pretty darn good at a CNC lathe. So once you get that quote unquote mastered, then you move on to the next department or the next area. When I went through my apprenticeship, it even included engineering. It included going through the assembly area where we assembled the machines that assembled connecting rods to pistons for engines, where I went through mine. It even included shipping and receiving for, I think it was a week or something like that, and inspection area. So a registered apprenticeship has to include more than just standing at one machine for 4 years.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
see, to me, that's a great thing because it
Yeah.
really, it enriches your brain. I mean, I'm a believer that at any age you can learn a great deal, but I think, when you're that age that you're talking about, that you had yours, yeah, I could see all of that really developing you, as far as learning how to think, etc. I just think that people are very caught up in this is how you do this one thing. Do you see that as a problem in training
I've had
or
that
not?
I have had that discussion with several human resources people and people of that nature recently, that how do you get somebody to believe that they can run any machine they look at? How is it
Hmm.
that somebody can jump in a Ford and drive it, and then jump in a Toyota and drive it, and jump in a
Yeah, what
Chevy?
do you know?
Yeah, but yet when they see different machines, they kind of freeze. That gets me, because give me enough time, I'll figure out any machine. Give me the book,
Exactly.
give me a few people to ask. And with tech support nowadays for all these companies, you look at the stuff you sell, there's support for all that. Somebody's got the answer. And I think
See,
that's a
that's from me. It's frustrating as a machinery dealer because I'm like, yeah, it's a Swiss machine. Come on. Oh, this has got Fanuc control and this has got Mitsubishi control. Like, yeah, you can learn that or whatever.
yeah,
Or
feed
they both
holds
have
cycle.
Fanuc control. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to be willing to go play with the machine, and not be afraid to hit the wrong button. Just make sure you know where the emergency stop is.
Do you think that um, people are afraid of screwing up, and that's why they are afraid to learn some other system? Maybe they aren't given
Yep.
that comfort level.
I see that a lot in schools nowadays. That's probably one of the biggest things I've seen over the 24 years, is that, yeah, the confidence level of today's youth is not as high on things they've never done before. I think standardized tests and
Hmm.
things like that have gotten them. I tell my students, they hear me say it multiple times a week, if not a day, that my goal is to fail 100 times a day. Because if you're not failing, you're not learning anything. And
That's
I try not to
brilliant.
um, hurt anybody or hurt any machines or break any tools. But think of how many times you misspeak, or that you say the wrong word, or just some people will say the wrong word in a conversation and just freeze and freak out. Um, if I misspeak, I apologize, and okay, this is what I really meant. And just little things like that, and
Yeah.
hopefully that teaches them that it's okay to fail as long as you get back up.
Very very interesting. So that's something that you try to emphasize to your students in your class, just the comfort
And
of
demonstrate.
trying something and yeah. All right. So, back to the story now.
Mhm.
You had helped start this machining company, um, and you're you're still young, fresh in the production world. You your teacher needs you to substitute something at the other school. What happened then?
So that first shop I went to after high school full time, I was there for about, I think it was about a year and a half. And the shop that we toured my senior year, Micro Precision, had a ad in the newspaper back, for the classifieds for the help wanted. Wow, have to explain that to kids nowadays. And it said must have 5 years experience. Well, at the point I only had about a year and a half, but hey, what's going to stop me from applying? So what are they going to do? Not hire me? And so I applied, and got the job, and went through the apprenticeship. And towards the end of my apprenticeship, the whole time I'd stayed in contact with Mr. Tumbleson, and he had kind of tricked me into teaching an adult class. He said, "Hey, would you teach it?" And I said, "No, I'm an extreme introvert. I hated talking in front of classes and giving speeches and stuff. When you had to in high school, and there's no way I can do it. Give me a machine, and I'm pretty confident. Put me in front of people, and nah." And he said, "You can do it." And finally, he tricked me into he just said, come to adult class and just see how it goes. And so I sat in the back of the class, and the first night he, kind of had me help a couple people. The second night I showed up, and and he was, hey, why don't you go show that person? He missed last week, so it was kind of a live demo. And before you know it, I was kind of teaching that class, team teaching it with him. And
Mm-hmm.
then the next semester, he talked me into doing a class by myself. Um, so it scared me most that I was at the time, probably 22, and there were people in those classes that was old enough to be my dad, maybe my grandpa at the time. And he
Funny.
said, when they walk in, they're there to learn machining, and you know more about machining than they know. So that kind of gave me the confidence then to just go in and show them what I knew. Show them what people took their time to show me, and basically paying it forward to those people wanting to learn the trade. And it was a lot of people just wanting to do it hobby wise. There was a few people that was career oriented. There was even the first class I taught a few high school students. They couldn't fit the class in during the high school, but they wanted to take machining, so they came to the adult class, the night class. I was single at the time, so I would, I had all kinds of vacation days. At the time when I was there, I had 5 weeks vacation, and so what's a 20-something-year-old need 5 weeks vacation for? So I would
That's
use
true.
vacation days just to go sub.
Could you just go a little further? How does it make you feel when you help someone else? Does it? My guess is it's more than just sort of this. I'm giving back, and that's a great thing, and I feel good about that. Is there a certain exhilaration you get when you're with someone you're teaching and you see an impact? Is there an energy that releases in you?
Seeing the aha moment, when a kid's frustrated, can't figure it out, or even the adults, they can't figure it out, all of a sudden it clicks, and you can see the aha moment on their face, and they kind of see the connection where they can use that not just in machining or something else.
Yeah.
That's probably the coolest moment.
I can tell that you you have an aptitude for machining, and it seems like you also have a love for the processes and how it all works, etc. Um, is there a certain exhilaration though you get from teaching that you don't get from working in the shop? I mean, there's a reason that you've been a teacher for 24 years, 25 years, and didn't stay in the shop.
I think as when we talked before the interview, I said they was talking about shutting the class down 24 years ago, and I knew how much it helped me get started.
Uh,
So I had to give it a shot, see if I could do it. I said I would give it
right,
5 years.
because your
24.
teacher was leaving, correct?
Yes, yeah. They
I
needed
see.
somebody, and I had just finished up. Well, I was just in the process of finishing up my apprenticeship. And so I was helping him move machines from the old shop to the new shop. And we was talking the one day, and I said, well, if they're going to shut it down because you're leaving, I said, what would it take? And he said, what? I said, what would it take? What would it take for me to start teaching? And so he checked in on it, and it was possible in Indiana for people to go straight from industry. Um, Being through in a registered apprenticeship, that gave me enough documented time and documented training that there was one class I had to take on how to deal with the classroom. But I joke around. The only thing I remember from that class is the instructor of that class was lie, cheat, and steal to get whatever you can for your classroom. So so that is literally the only thing I remember from that whole class. And instead of lie, cheating, and stealing, one thing I found really quick was to have a great advisory board. And our advisory board is talked
Mm,
about throughout the state. Some people's advisory boards are just the high dollar management level people. And right from the start, I decided I wanted people still in the trenches. If I wasn't going to be in the trenches anymore, of working in a machine shop every day, I wanted somebody that was. So since then, since I've got so many past students working out in the shops, a good chunk of our advisory board now is past students that's either working in the shops, or engineering, different aspects. Some of them even own shops now. So have a great advisory board if
Interesting.
if you're going to be doing something like this. So I think I don't think, I know my heart is still, on the machines. It's a couple
Hmm.
summers ago, I went and worked for a past student in a machine shop and a job shop. Kind of just, they needed help. They just got some different machines that um, they wanted somebody who already knew that brand of machine, and it's what we have at school. And so it
Interesting.
was kind of to help them out, but it was mostly to see if I still had it. It's one thing to be around high school students that's just learning the trade. Well, you look pretty darn good then, but going back to the real
And
world, and
how did it turn out?
they wanted to hire me full time.
Eh,
It still crosses my mind from time to time.
sounds like you're
Um,
an ace.
I don't say that because I know I still have a lot to learn. I
Of
still,
course.
if I ever think that I don't have anything else to learn, that I know it all, they better be putting me 6 feet under. It's
I thought you were going to
because
say that.
I think
So
that's part of being a true machinist, is being a lifelong learner. You have production workers, you have
mm,
button pushers, but then you have true machinists that there's a new machine in here. Hey, what does it take for me to learn it? Oh, there's another new machine. I want to go learn that. And they're constantly wanting to learn, constantly wanting to move.
see, I think if that's one of the things that you're instilling in your students, that's an amazing thing to teach people. I think even me, I mean, I always had people, you know, I came up with some of the most encouraging people around me, support system, etc. But there's still always that feeling you get from certain people of, we don't do that. That's not our kind of thing. I mean, maybe you should just try to do this instead or whatever.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your personality, judging by all of the things you've told me just from your first few years, they said, oh, you have to have 5 years experience for this. Oh, you you're not 18. You can't do this, whatever. And you said, yeah, whatever, I'm going to do it. Oh, you're only 18 or 20 and you're teaching adults. Yeah, that's fine. I don't have a teaching degree. Um, what do I have to do to teach this class? Yeah, I'll go and do it and figure it out. I'm in awe. I mean, I just think if you can instill that with the high schoolers you teach, I mean, just if they can see that what you did, that's just inspirational. I remember when we prepared for this, you gave me a quote, a study, something about 96%. Tell me the 96%.
I don't know where I ever heard that from, but basically it is that there's 2% of the world population that think of like Einstein, or Michael Jordan or whoever, the best of the best of the best. And, so 2% of the population that can do stuff that nobody else can do. And then there's 2% that may have mental, physical handicap that, whatever, like severe stuff that, they can't do what, um, for one reason or another, they can't do what the rest of the population can do. So that leaves that 96% in the middle. I always joke around with the kids with a different percentage, and some aren't good at math, but 96% in the middle that we can do anything that anybody else can do. That we all have the same, capability. Now, is it stuff we should be doing? That's a whole nother question. So are we following our
Mm.
talents? Are we following, our path that, God set us on, that what should we be doing, whether we do it or not? Could I go be a banker? Well, yeah, I think I could. Do I want to? No. Could I go be a doctor? Possibly. Do I want to? No.
Yeah,
So
but see,
so
that's
that
incredible. From most people don't say that. Most people, and people that are very successful, the idea of saying, "Yeah, I could be a doctor or a banker, whatever. Sure, that's no problem." Like, I don't know if this statistic is true, but I feel like it's truer than a lot of people would think. So I think
exactly.
that's it. And you tell people that, you tell students that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the percentage is, you
But I
just
mean, is
have to
that one of the
realize
things
if
you
somebody
tell
else
your
can.
students?
Yeah, yeah. I
You
tell the
tell them that.
students, whatever you want to go be it. And I joke around. I find the biggest, burliest kid in the class and point at him. I say, if you want to go be a ballerina, I want you to be the best ballerina there ever was. And so that is what my parents instilled in me. That
Clearly.
I grew up in a house that girls can do anything boys can do. And so I had three sisters, and they can do anything that we can do. And uh, yeah, it just kind of carried over that. My parents don't have college degrees, but that didn't stop them from being successful. Out of us siblings, there's five of us siblings. Only one has a college degree. And she works at a college now. So college was always an option
Interesting.
for us, but it was never a requirement. And that's one thing. I swore as long as I was going to be at school, I would never get a college degree, because the first parent teacher conference I have, and I'm talking to the parents of students, and especially those students that are, maybe CD students, in the core classes. And I tell them, well, I was making $50,000 a year in Adams County, Indiana, and I didn't have a college degree. And that was 4 years out of high school. I was making $50,000. What? And
Wow.
I explained to them that, how
Um,
apprenticeships work and all that stuff. You can
Tell
just
me
see their
about
eyes light up.
when you first came to teach.
That,
So you first
you
came to
know,
teach.
since I've been at the
Yeah.
school, guidance counselors know about apprenticeships now. I've been preaching it for 24 years
Ah,
now. We celebrate National Apprenticeship Week, which was just 2 weeks ago. Um, I
cool.
make sure parents, I make sure everybody that'll listen, knows about the value of registered apprenticeships. It's documented 4 years training. Isn't that what college is? Documented 4 years of training.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's
So,
it's it's higher ed,
yeah,
basically. And it's, and then all the people that go to the the 4-year colleges, they're all fighting over the internship, which is basically
right,
like an apprenticeship that you might actually have to pay for. Um,
right.
what Okay, so let's go back to the story. So you came to teach at the school. Your mentor has left, and
Yep.
well, what happened right away? Things there was sort of interesting shift immediately, correct? In how things were taught.
I went into
You
the school
started with you
teaching
started
classes
with
like
the
everybody
book.
else did. I
Hmm.
started
Is
chapter
that how your
one.
teacher shot?
Dude,
Is that how your teacher taught
that's how
you
every
with
class.
chapter 1, chapter 2?
Um, we we went through the textbook. Not exactly like that. There was a lot of shop time. When I took the class, it was the first year for the class, so we even spent time wiring up machines. He showed us how to wire three phase. He showed us
Yeah.
how to level machines, and wow, that paid off when I took over. And had to set up the shop the first year. And so now when we get new machines in, I have them ready to go before the techs even come in. So we started going through the textbook, doing stuff out in the shop, but finally it was right before Thanksgiving that first year, and three of the students came up and they said, this isn't working. And I said, good, because this isn't working for me. How can we change it? And, and so we kind of talked a little bit. We went out in the shop and worked. And so Thanksgiving break, I'd racked my brain and, definitely prayed about it and everything. And came back after Thanksgiving break in the afternoon class and said, hey guys, we're going to build an engine. We're going to design and build an engine from scratch. And so I started asking them,
Wow.
hey, how do you want this part? How do you want this part to look? And you could hear crickets. So I'd ask about the next part, and you'd hear crickets. I said, "Do you guys know what goes on inside of an engine?" No. I said, "Oh, okay." So we went and worked out in the shop Monday, the rest of the class period, and I went and borrowed a video from our auto teacher on the inner workings of an engine and showed it the next day, so they had an idea of what we were doing. And we basically designed an engine on the chalkboard, had colored chalk for the different
Wow.
parts. So at night that first year, I'd take pictures of the chalkboard, go home. I bought AutoCAD LT, kind of dates it right there. Of AutoCAD LT 2D was awesome back then.
What
And
year was
would
this?
um,
1995?
no, it'd be 2000.
1994?
That'd be 2000. No, I graduated. The first class was 93, 94. The first year I taught was the 2000, 2001. So this would have been fall of 2000. And
Okay.
so,
Okay.
so we went through Machinery's Handbook for fits and allowances. We went through strength of materials. We even made a dummy connecting rod and stress tested it. And so we went through a lot of the engineering. And then every student individually made all our own parts for their engine. And towards the end of the year, we were getting done with the engine parts and assembling and everything. And we had one cheerleader the whole time. Our auto teacher, Gary McMillan, he was my mentor that first year. He was my auto teacher my junior year. He was like, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you guys are going to get an
Jerod?
engine running, cheering us along." Well, I'd got all the parts done for the demo parts that I was doing, and we couldn't get to run. So he came over after school
Jerod,
one night.
I wanna
Yep,
I wanna I wanna
yep,
interrupt you 1 second.
yep.
So before you guys started on the engine and you came up with
Mm-hmm.
this idea, you had never built an engine yourself before, right? Or had
Right.
you?
Yeah. I'd never taken an engineering class in my life. My dad was a mechanic for
So
30
you
some
just
years.
but you
So I
figured,
grew up around it.
okay. So you figured, oh, I can figure this out because your was a mechanic, a car mechanic.
Yeah. An auto service tech. Yeah. Engines are
Okay.
engines. Parts work a certain way. Things have to move a certain way. You just have to make sure your clearances are right. So parts are parts.
I just find it awesome that you would pick to build something with the students when you had never built it yourself. And my assumption is that you learned a great deal about the engineering and everything else as you had to teach it.
Well, yeah, yeah, and we ended up, kind of making our little handbook, so we had reference from previous years and just, what worked, what didn't work, how could we improve, and this is the 24th year we've done 24 different complex assemblies, so we design a new project every year in the afternoon class. Now we're up to
Amazing.
solid modeling, and so it's gotten a lot easier since 2D CAD, of the design
What are
work.
the other things
So
you've done
we
besides the engine?
it's mostly engines. We've done V twins. We've done four strokes where we cut our own gears and made our own camshaft. We've done the 1 year. It was a split project. We did an engine, but some of the kids didn't want to do an engine. And it was a big class, so they broke into two groups. One group did that, and another group made a clay pigeon thrower. So they made all the ratchet system and everything for a clay pigeon thrower. So that's probably the most unusual one. Another year, two groups. One group made a engine, the other group made a can crusher. So we made our own valving, own cylinder, made everything for a can crusher.
Do you let the kids choose what the project is, or do you kind of give them some choices? How does that work?
It has to be a complex assembly, and beyond that, it's up to them. We
You
had
let them kind of brainstorm and vote for it.
Yep. We had 1 year
That's awesome.
we made a benchtop milling machine. There was one student that wanted to do a benchtop milling machine, and nobody else did. And because the big holdup was, could we get enough material? That was big chunks of steel. So that one student did all the legwork to find a company to donate the steel, donate the motor we
Wow.
used for the spindle, and we ended up making a benchtop milling machine that weighed, I think, it was about 75, 80 pounds. So
See, I mean,
yeah, it's
it all
totally up to
sounds
the students,
awesome. Do you
as long as
the
it's legal,
problem
moral, and school appropriate.
the problem I see with the engine versus some of these other things is the engine you're not actually going to get to see. Well, I guess you could. Do you get to see the engine run somehow,
Yeah,
or
yeah, we start all the engines. Yeah, all the engines run. In recent years, we've put videos on our Instagram. Last year, we did a Stirling engine. We based it off of a different design and did modifications and stuff. This year, we're doing a compressed air engine. We've done Stirling engines. Last year, we did another Stirling engine. We've done glow
what is a
engines,
Stirling engine?
compressed air motors. A Stirling engine is a form of a heat engine. The concept of it was invented in the 1800s by Robert Stirling. Basically, heat one end of it, hot air expands, cold air contracts. So the air inside of the motor stays inside the motor. You're just making it expand and contract. So if
Very
anybody wants to go to
cool.
our Instagram, they can see that running on our Instagram.
Okay, give me a little bit of. I'm trying to understand exactly the format of it. So is it just one class per year you teach? It goes for 4 years? How many semesters do they get to take of your class?
Okay,
How does
so
that
for
work?
the first year class, it's about an hour and a half long. So whether it's one block at some schools, or whether it's 2 periods if it's a 7 period school. So it's about an hour and a half in the morning. There's 2 classes in the morning, so 2 beginning classes, and then in the
Okay.
afternoon, then we have our second year class, our advanced class. That's where we do our engine project at. So the first year, the hour and a half each day, that's where we build the foundation. That's where we go on start out the manual machines, work our way through manual lathes, manual mills, surface grinders, heat treat, EDM, uh, even some polishing and measurement along the way, doing all our inspection as we
Okay.
go. I don't like saying, "Hey, we're going to do inspection for 3 weeks." We just mix that in along the way. Inspection can be pretty boring if you're just teaching that over and over again, day in, day out.
Interesting.
It's very important, but wow, to make good parts, you got to be good at inspecting your part. So I joke around with the students. I said, "You guys know where the textbook is?" They look around. Back there. I said, "Oh, there's machiner's handbooks are back there, but where's the textbooks at?" And they're buried behind a bunch of other books right now. We haven't even gotten a textbook out all school year, and we're however many weeks into school
What's in
already.
the textbook?
Um, Dated information. um,
Mm-hmm. Like
it
what?
the basics are in there. The basics are in the textbook, but when you
About
have
what? I
how
don't know what the basics would
oh
even be.
oh okay what
Feeds
it
and
would
speeds and
yeah
I
yeah
mean,
how you would calculate speeds and feeds, but we do it in class, we do it at the machines, we do it on the whiteboard. We do it live instead of reading through a chapter and trying to learn it from a book. um,
okay.
Trigonometry, shop math, parts of a lathe, parts of a mill, all that kind of stuff's in the textbook. um, my opinion is, when it comes to a manual lathe, if a student can use a tailstock on a lathe and make awesome parts and utilize that tailstock in every way possible, by offsetting for taper and do whatever, does it really matter that they know what it's called?
No.
Yeah. So, and I know that will get a lot of people fired up. In turn, as they learn how to use it, the first few times it may be that, can you show me how to do this one thing again on this one thing? And I'll joke, okay, that one thing on that one thing. How about you show me that one thing? And then I'll repeat, it's a tailstock or whatever the part is over and over again. And then before you know it, they're calling parts by the right names. And so instead of memorizing it
Mm-hmm.
in a textbook, we are on our feet learning, and that's, I think, the key to the class, that we're thinking on our feet all day long. So
Do you give them exams?
we still have a few tests along the way. We do trigonometry, we do speeds and feeds, and we don't have as many tests as most classes do. And still, when it comes
Do you test them to make something on the lathe and see how it comes out?
their projects, basically, I look as their projects as being tests. So if they can make a good
Okay,
project, then
so you grade them on projects.
oh yeah. They do their own inspection. So they'll make the
Okay.
project according to print. They'll do their own inspection and complete an inspection sheet. Then I will grade the part. So I'll go through and inspect it. That's how I know whether they can measure right
Nice.
and whether they can make a part right. So they get points of whether they can hit the dimension,
Understood.
and they get points of whether they measured it right. So that's why I tell them, don't lie about a dimension. So if they know they measured wrong, then they need to write down that wrong measurement, and they still get some of their points because I know they can measure right.
Yes.
When we
Interesting.
go to
Okay, so most of the
contests,
grade, because
we
everybody's
don't spend a whole lot of
preoccupied with
time on
grades.
what's that?
I said everybody's, preoccupied with grades and ratings or whatever. So you still grade, but you grade their projects and how well they do on them.
A project in my class is worth 200 points. A written test is worth 100 points, because as machinists, we're going to get paid for what we do, not for what we can say we can do on a piece of paper.
Very interesting. So you mentioned that you have some good advisors, but I know that you have to deal with some people, in the administration who may not get it. What are your experiences with them? It sounds like a lot of the times you just say, well, it's kind of my way or the highway. Is that sort of what you tell them?
Well, not that way. When I get a new administrator, I'm on my fourth superintendent, my fourth principal, and fourth CT director. And I'm not afraid to say this on a podcast because they all know I've said it to their face. I try to be friendly and everything, and then I tell them, you're not my boss. And the look on their face is priceless. But then I explain that if I worry about trying to keep administration happy, I'm not going to be able to keep our customers happy. And the customers, as in places like Hoosier Pattern, Micro Precision, O&R Precision, LH Carbide, it's just, I could keep listing the companies that they're our customer. If we can't keep our customer happy, then I can't worry about keeping the bosses happy. So instead of trying to keep the boss happy, keep your customers happy, and the boss will know that you're doing your job, and then that makes them happy, right? So know your customer. And our customer is not colleges, it's not the welfare office,
Right.
It's not administration, it's not even the guidance counselor office, to make sure the transcripts right. It's their career. I challenge my students to think about their customers, and I challenge their customer to be their 40-year-old self. Because think about where you were when you're 40 years old. When you're 40 years old, you probably have a family, you probably have a house, you probably have a car, you probably have kids. So what's it going to take to be successful at 40 years old? That makes an 18-year-old think about things a little bit different.
Do you have standardized tests that you have to give in your class? They hold you accountable in any kind of way as far as a certain curriculum?
We have a NIMS test. It's National Institute of Metalworking Skills. So we do those. So that's kind of our measurement that we can go by.
What are those?
The
is
NIMS
that like
are
using
national.
A micrometer, or is that like?
It's all on the computer. For the first test, it's all on the computer. Job planning, benchwork, layout, measurement, material, and safety are the two first tests you do. For the most part, there's a project you have to do and get 100% on. Otherwise, you do it again. And then you have to pass the test online to be able to get the certification. So we still do those. We kind of do those as filler projects. So those are almost back of mind for us. Just enough to be able to check boxes.
So the kids have no trouble doing that after your own curriculum.
Right, because we've done harder stuff. It's to make an engine that runs, Your dimensions have to be
That's
right. And
great.
your tolerances have to be right for the clearances to be right. Otherwise, things are going to lock up or not move, or it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
We still get some students that tests are not their thing. Um, Basic classroom stuff is not their cup of tea, and they cannot pass those tests. So they can do awesome on the projects, but you have to get the project and the test to get the certification. So when it comes down to it, if I have a student that cannot get the certification, I don't care. As long as they can do the project, I can still get them a job. They can still have an awesome career. Um, just because they're not a good test taker doesn't make you a failure. In machining and manufacturing, we get paid for what we produce. There's office people that take care of our paperwork. Let them take care of our paperwork, and let us people that are better at the machines do our specialty.
Yes.
So,
How often do you get kids in the program that they get in there and they have a tough time, and they start questioning, oh, is this kind of thing for me? Or I don't know, they're just not a great fit, or they think they're not a great fit. Does that happen all the time? I mean, the way we talk about it right now, everything, the formula sounds amazing. They build the stuff, they do the projects, they're very rewarded, then they get great jobs afterward. But I know it's hard work for them and for you. So how often does that happen, and are things difficult, and how do you deal with that, and are you usually successful at riding the ship? Give me a few examples of that, if you don't mind.
Math is usually the hurdle for some students, because in machining we use a lot of math,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's trigonometry, whether it's speeds and feeds, whatever. Just simple calculations sometimes are a struggle for some students. Some of them do catch on because we try to keep things as simple as possible. When it comes to trigonometry, there's two main formulas will get you through a large percentage of trig in the real world, in the machine shop. So we don't have to do what math classes do. We can concentrate on what you're going to use in the real world. And some students just don't get it. And the nice thing about it is if I can get them as a sophomore or junior, they still have time to look at other careers. And then the ones that do get it, they can be back for their senior year to lead right into their career. I can usually break the class down into thirds. And I don't know if other machining classes would say the same thing, but a third of the class, the third of the students that sign up for the class are headed to go be engineers or something engineering related. Whether it's college or whether it's
Okay.
manufacturing engineer or whatever. A third are going to go straight to industry as machinist on the machine, setting up machines, programming, doing whatever. And then a third, well, I hope they're good at something. They're going to be good tax-paying members of society. They may be working in a production shop where they hit the green button and change parts. Maybe doing something, but to be a true machinist that give me the print, give me the machine, give me the tools, get out of my way. That's going to be a struggle for some of them, but there's going to be something they can be good
Yeah.
at. And if they want to stay in manufacturing, I've had some students, they've struggled at making good parts. I've had students that struggled at the book side, the math side. And one career, because they like to get their hands dirty, they like to work on things. One career that most guidance counselors never even heard of that I suggest to them is rigging. Somebody's got to move the machines and set them up. And if they
That's
like to work
true.
around machines and they like to get their hands dirty and they know kind of how things need to move and stuff, and they kind of understand a little bit about real life physics, they could be a really awesome rigger, which I'm sure pays pretty darn good, but it doesn't show up on a guidance
Yeah.
counselor's radar.
Yeah. Well, are the kids motivated for the most part in your class because it's kind of a choice that they go to your class?
Yeah, that helps that it is an optional class. Some of them they need the credit to
Mm-hmm.
graduate. They don't need the class, but they need the credit to graduate. So that motivates them to get at least a good enough grade to get the credit, even if they're struggling. But yeah, for the most part, they chose the class, so they want to do good at it, and they start to see that they don't have to sit in a desk to learn, and that we do most of our learning
Yeah.
not in the classroom. So
That gives you an advantage over, just a math teacher or an English teacher where they're very well likely are forced into that class. So even though maybe they still feel like they're forced to be in school, do you feel like that gives you somewhat of an advantage because this is somewhat their ownership
yeah,
of it?
yeah, and I know every teacher of classes like this hear the same thing. So it's not just me, from parents, that the only reason my kid goes to school is for your class. We hear that stuff over and over again, because they did find
That's
their
got to be
place in
amazing.
life. Yeah, but some English teachers and math teachers and social say they hear the same thing. It's just for some of these students that haven't really found their place until they got into manufacturing machining, this may be the first time they really felt at home, where they can use their
Yeah.
hands and use their brain and not have to prove it on a piece of paper. They can prove it with a part.
Yeah. Do you think that wages for people in the trades, and particularly for machining, do you think they're where they should be? Are they attractive enough? My personal opinion is that the wages haven't kept up with inflation and supply and demand, and you have a lot of people complaining about not finding people and not finding enough kids that want to go into the industry. And you go, well, would you work for X wage? What's your opinion on that? I feel like things are sort of somewhere in the middle as far as that. But what we always say is, all right, well, if you're interested in working with your hands, if you're interested in working with in the trades, why would you want to go do precision machining when you could become a heating and air conditioning person and make $100,000 right out of school? So do you feel like there's a disconnect?
Yeah, I think there is. Now, don't get me wrong. We are a lot, in our area. We are a low cost of living.
Yeah.
So we're very rural. So, but still, we have machinists in our area making $80,000 a year. No college degree, and have a 40-hour week. So maybe just a little bit of
Right. And
overtime.
80,000 a year in your area is probably like 100 in another area.
Exactly. So some shops are slow. They'll start them pretty low, just to make sure they do have the work ethic and show up every day and pass a drug test and all that kind of stuff. But I tell the students that you're either there to learn or you're there to earn. So if you're there to learn, so you're the low man on the totem pole, learn everything you can, learn all the machines, the earning's going to pay off in the long run. And I have students all the time. They come back, for open house or whatever, and I'll say, okay, just between you and me, how much are you making? Because I like to stay
Mm-hmm.
up on that, and I'm not afraid to tell them that, you may want to go talk to your boss and go find a different job. So that keeps the shops honest. That they are keeping up. We are surrounded by awesome shops. Um, we don't do a lot of production work, production machining. So the machines that you specialize in, there's not a whole lot of shops in our area that have that. We're
You're doing
more
like
job
low volume.
high mix, yeah. So we're more job shop down in our area. So that takes a higher skill level.
What do you
So
mean then? Like lathes and mills, that kind of thing you're saying versus what do you mean?
yeah, just CNC lathes, CNC machining centers, boring mills. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, maybe 30, 40 parts, where you talk on the podcast a lot, your indexes and your transfer machines and everything, where you're doing 100,000 parts. One of our biggest production shops in the area, they do 7 parts a day, or sorry, 7,000 parts a day. That's a production shop in our
Mm-hmm.
area. They make a lot of metal chips, but it's 7,000 of the same parts each day. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, we're very specialized with what we do. The pay is good. You brought up HVAC, and that comes up a lot. I look at it this way: in the heat of the summer, when they're trying to fix somebody's air conditioner, we're still inside where it's climate controlled. In the dead of winter, when they're trying
Right.
to, maybe climb up in an attic or underneath a house, we're still inside climate controlled. So there's a lot of
Yeah, it
benefits of
depends
being a
on what shop.
machinist. I
Depends
love
on,
being outside.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Do you think that the type of model that your school has and your school system has, you think that it could be theoretically, I mean, it seems like it could be scaled and be, nationwide in some way.
If the instructor is willing to put in a lot of hours, I give away everything. If you go to our website, you can just search South Adams Machine Trades. All the demo videos for our first semester project, all our prints, all our inspection sheets, all our demo videos are online. Um, doesn't cost anybody anything. Anybody who wants to learn machining, get a good foundation built. There's no Steven Spielberg production. I'm no Brad Pitt, but it's they get the point across. For the only thing I don't give away is the engine prints that the students design. I look at that as it's their engine, it's their property, it's not for me to give away. So everything else, I've had people email and I just send them links, I send them whatever. We had an advisor or an instructor in Indiana was in a bad car wreck a few years ago, was in the hospital. His principal got a hold of all of us teachers in the state and said, "Hey, we've got a sub, but they don't know machining. Can anybody help?" So I just sent them a link to our website, and that kept their class going. So they used our prints, our videos. Um, so yeah,
But the
it
thing is,
could be transferred.
there's oh, you're saying this, it's for other teachers, they could take your curriculum from it. But the
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's just not the same as having something structured in place like yours. I mean, I know that you basically designed and built what you do in a way. I mean, you yes, you took it from somebody else and you ran with it, but it seems like just theoretically more school districts around the country could do something like this if they had the right guidance.
Yeah, I you think I'm structured, and the way I say that, people think I'm structured when they see what we do. They think we're structured. We are probably the most unstructured classes out there because I try to
Mm-hmm.
run it like the real world.
So you've been doing this 25 years,
24.
24. Um,
Yeah.
you know, how have you seen the kids change as far as, everybody likes to complain about the newer generation. Oh, they don't have attention span or whatever. Or have you seen, how have you seen things change? Are you seeing a lot of, I know there's a lot of exposure to this kind of stuff on YouTube. Um, in a way we're living in a time of a lot of do it yourself as far as teaching yourself, etc. What are some of the bad trends you're seeing and the good trends you're seeing as far as kids these days and their influences, etc.? Start with the bad and then go with the good.
I think students nowadays still think they have to go to college to be a success. I still think they're hearing that too many places. Um, I've seen a lot of students, which everybody probably agree with, spend too much time on the screen. But as a CNC programmer, we need to spend a lot of time at the screen. So we just need to kind of manipulate that screen time from video games to things like Esprit or Fusion 360 or Mastercam or things that are productive screen time. So those are probably some of the biggest things that I see that's a hurdle. Kids or young people nowadays, for the most part, they think the answer's in the book. And this
Hmm.
machining's real life. So the answer is not in the book all the time. Yeah, we need to look up speeds and feeds. Yes, we need to use the book for clearances and fits and allowances. Yes, we need to use the book for this and
Do you
that.
think that that's
But
changed? That's something that's changed in the
yeah,
last 2 decades, or
because
is that basically the same?
no, I think that's really changed. I think that when I first started teaching, we spent maybe 15 minutes on how to read a steel rule. 20 years ago, students were still working with dad, grandpa, uncle, whatever, building stuff. Nowadays it's, you go hire somebody to do it. Well, who are you going to hire? If nobody can do it, so, we have to teach a lot more of the basics because there's no longer quote unquote shop class in most schools, to teach the basics.
Yeah.
Um, so we're starting out from ground zero, um, instead of assuming they know how to read a tape measure, assuming that they know sharp pieces can cut you. So we spend a lot of time on safety, a lot of time on the basics, um, to make sure that when we do go out in the shop, it is going to be safe, and they are going to be productive. So
Are kids as good a listeners now as they were back then? Are they better? Are they?
I always joke around that, the vast majority of my class is ADD, ADHD, but then again, so is their instructor. So it's all fair that way. They're an
But has it changed? Is
INTJ.
it the same?
The attention span has gotten shorter, but
Okay.
since we're moving around a lot and we're constantly moving from one thing to another, if you get the most ADD kid in the machine shop and you get them hooked on what you're doing and they get interested, they have some of the longest attention spans you've ever seen. Once they get hooked, it's just in the normal classroom, the classroom teachers, yeah, they're not required to sit in a desk. I have some kids that never sit in a desk. They walk in and they stand the whole time. And that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Even if we're doing a classroom lecture, they could be standing. Well, I'm standing too, so what's the big deal? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, attention spans
And then,
changed. The basics have changed.
okay. And what's the best thing you've seen about this new generation?
Some of them's not scared of technology. Some of them's not scared to hit that button on the machine. There are still some that they're worried about, breaking the machine or breaking something. But um, some of them, when we sit down on the CAD CAM software, they'll just go crazy with it. Where in the past that used to
Okay.
be something that they would struggle with.
Interesting. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the people of the world? This has been fantastic.
Just want to thank everybody that does help out their local schools. We all need it. When I do leave the school, that's one thing I won't ever be able to just leave education. I know I will have to stay with helping whoever takes my place, and whoever the local schools are. So if you're in manufacturing, find out who your local teacher is, get to know them on a first name basis, give them your cell phone number for when they have problems, and don't be afraid to bug them because you're probably not bugging them. Sometimes we need that real life full time machinist to talk to, just to have some adult conversation. So,
Fantastic. Thank you, Jerod.
thank you, Noah.